Walters is open late and a great spot to watch the final rounds of the NBA and Stanley Cup playoffs. Walters Sports Bar and Restaurant is located just across the street from Nationals Park.
Griffin toes the rubber first base side. The lanky lefty hesitates with the kick and fires. And a line drive deep left field. This is trouble. Lyle going back, looking up, and Bo Bichette has homered again. 2 at-bats, two-run homers for Bichette, and a 5-0 New York lead. James Wood, with the bases loaded, singled his first time up. Set for McLean. Here's the pitch. Swinging a fly ball, deep left center field. Chasing back Taylor to the warning track. He will leap. Morabito leaps, and it's off his glove. They don't know where it is. This might be an inside the park home run. 3 runs have scored. Wood is circling the bases. The throw home is not in time. Wood with a head-first slide has it inside the park. Grand slam home run. They're going crazy here in Nationals Park. It's now 5-4 New York. And James Wood circles the bases for his first career grand slam, and it's the Nationals' second ever inside the park grand slam. My oh my.
Here's the pitch. We had a ground ball to short. Runner breaking for the plate. Bichette's throw home off the glove of Torrens. Wood has scored. Here comes Tate to the plate. He has scored. As the catcher, Torrens had to chase the ball to the backstop. Oh my. Abrams ends up at second base. 2-run score on the play. It's the Nationals 9 and the Mets 5.
And welcome to Nats Chat. I'm Al Galdi, host of the Al Galdi podcast. I'm joined by Washington Nationals insider Mark Zuckerman of NatsJournal.com. He's at Nationals Park, where the Nats on Tuesday evening, for the second time in 7 days, overcame a 5-0 second inning deficit in a win. Last Wednesday evening, May 13th, an 8-7 10-inning win at the Cincinnati Reds in a game in which the Nats overcame a 5-0 second inning deficit. And Tuesday evening, May 19th, a 9-6 win over the New York Mets at Nationals Park in Game 2 of a 4-game series. This was a game for which the start was delayed for 46 minutes due to rain. This was a game in which the Nats overcame a 5-0 second inning deficit. The Nats in MLB's 2026 regular season, now back to being a game under 500, 24-25, are number 1 in MLB in runs, 271, and are dead last in MLB in runs allowed, 290. But the Nats' elite offense again came through in this win over the Mets on Tuesday evening. This installment of Nats Chat brought to us by Shirtgood, owned and operated by a diehard Nats fan. Shirtgood makes funny and local shirts such as the iconic Howie Kendrick foul pole shirt. Check out Shirtgood at shirtgoodhq.com or ShirtgoodHQ on Instagram, and use the promo code NatsChat for 10% off your order. So, James Wood on Tuesday evening hit an inside-the-park grand slam. Dylan Cruz on Tuesday evening was back as the Nats on Tuesday afternoon announced 3 more roster moves off the big announcement late night on Monday night of them having optioned third baseman Brady House to AAA Rochester. Nats president of baseball operations Paul Toboni spoke to reporters on Tuesday afternoon. So we have a lot to get to, but the beauty of this Nats offense isn't just that it is good. It is that the offense punches right back. The Mets on Tuesday evening, 3 runs top of the first, 2 runs top of the second. The Nats then erupted for 9 runs over the second through 4th innings. And yes, the Mets were co-conspirators, some bad Mets defense. But Mark, this Nats offense is so likable and has made this team so resilient, and so overcoming a 5-0 second inning deficit. You don't expect it, but you're not exactly shocked by it at this point.
Absolutely not. And I tell you, the guys in the dugout absolutely were not shocked by it either. They're down 5-0, and they weren't just like wallowing in the misery of that and saying, oh, well, we just lost in 12 innings the night before. It looks like we're going to lose again. It was, all right, let's keep it going. We can do this. And let's be clear. Yeah, the Mets defense wasn't great, but they also really knocked out Nolan McLean, one of the best young pitchers in baseball, who had never had to start anything like this since reaching the big leagues last year. So they did this against a pretty quality opponent. And yes, the defense, of course, played a role in that, but they did still hit the ball really well against McLean. And it's not like they just chipped away at it. They got it back right away. Just like last week in Cincinnati, they're down 5-0 in the first. They made up that deficit by the third inning. And once again in this game, you're down 5-0 in the second. They made up the entire deficit and took the lead by the third inning. So this isn't like a slow drip. This is coming out with force right against you. The grand slam, of course, the big blow, but they kept it going after that. And I mean, really took it to McLean and took advantage of some very ugly Mets defense.
The best offenses in the NFL are good at what are called explosive plays. Ideally, you want an offense in football that doesn't require like 12 play drives to score touchdowns. You want an offense that is explosive. Those are the best offenses in football. The Nats have an explosive offense, an offense that hits homers, an offense that scores runs in bunches, and again, an offense that strikes right back when the pitching inevitably gives up a bunch of runs. And so you look at the Nats offense in this game, 9 runs, 9 hits, which were 2 home runs, a double, and 6 singles, 2 walks, 3 for 7 with runners in scoring position. Mark mentioned the Mets starting pitcher, Nolan McLean. Nolan McLean came into this game with an ERA of 2.51 over 17 career MLB regular season games, all starts. The Nats had their way with Nolan McLean. He allowed 9 runs, 6 earned in 5 2/3 innings. By the way, that, of course, is another sign of a great offense, an offense that gets to good pitching. But the inside the park grand slam, clearly the highlight of the night. James Wood was the Nats starting right fielder and number 1 batter, 3 for 5. Inside the park grand slam and 2 singles. Wood in the Nats 4-run second, a 2-out first pitch opposite field inside the park grand slam off the outfield wall in left center field to cut the Nats deficit to 5-4. Now, what happened on the grand slam was odd. The Mets left fielder Nick Morabito, who himself is a storyline, he's from the Washington, D.C. area, went to Gonzaga College High School in Washington, D.C., was making his MLB regular season debut in this game. Morabito crashed into the wall. And then the Mets center fielder Tyrone Taylor looked at Morabito as the ball rolled away, rolled down the warning track and onto the outfield grass. I don't really understand what was happening there, but whatever. And James Wood came flying around the base pass and the headfirst slide into home plate. What a great visual that was. What a moment that was.
It wasn't quite Niger Morgan bad in center field on the Adam Jones inside the Parker when Morgan slammed his glove to the ground, having no idea that the ball was about 20 feet away from him. But it was on the list of embarrassing moments. I don't know what Taylor was looking at, but he certainly wasn't looking at the ball. There's also a replay where they're following Wood all the way through the at-bat, and you can see when he realizes where the ball just caromed, his eyes light up. I think he's right around when he gets to first base. And I think in that moment, he's realizing, like, oh my God, I got to run because I might have a chance to go all the way here. He made it around the bases in 15.15 seconds. And that was while he wasn't lollygagging it to first base, but he was, not full speed because he's not thinking any idea that this is going to be an inside the Parker. This is either going to be a home run or it's going to be caught, perhaps. And so he turned on the jets after that to make it all the way around. It was really something to see. And it's a reminder that he does have more skills than just the simple ability to hit a baseball very far. He does have the ability to run fast with those long strides that he has. That was truly an exciting moment. And to be able to go from down 5-0 to now down 5-4 on one swing of the bat like that, I mean, what a difference that makes. It felt like an entirely new ball game immediately, and you can see how the rest of the team fed off that moment and just, ran with it.
James Wood now has an OPS of 933. This has become a nice battle between him and C.J. Abrams for the team lead in OPS. Abrams is at 909. Wood is slugging 534 to Abrams 523. But just a tremendous moment. We got an email, by the way. Why are inside the park grand slams called Little League grand slams? Simply put, that's how grand slams are hit in Little League baseball. They're not balls that clear fences. They are balls that are going all over the place in the outfield. And so you end up going 4 bases and getting a grand slam. And that's what James Wood got in this game.
The one caveat, when I hear the term Little League home run or Little League grand slam, that to me connotates an error or bad defense that screwed it up, as if to say you didn't actually get credit with a home run, but you got like a triple and an error or a single and a bunch of errors. To me, what he did is not a Little League home run. It's an inside the park grand slam. And yes, it happened as a result of a weird thing happening in the outfield, but he earned it to me. That wasn't like the defense throwing the ball away. So to me, when I hear Little League home run, Little League grand slam, I think of like the other team throwing the ball all over the field and the hitter not even getting credit with a home run or a grand slam. But yes, that's essentially where the term comes from, because there are very few traditional home runs or grand slams in Little League baseball.
It was a play that in so many ways is emblematic of the 2026 New York Mets. And I think we all got a laugh out of that. Also homering for the Nats in this game, Jose Tena. He was the Nats starting DH and number 3 batter, 1 for 4 with a solo homer. Tena in the Nats 3-run third, leadoff first pitch, opposite field home run to left field to tie the game at 5. Tena continues to quietly produce when called upon. His OPS now at 748, his slugging percentage at 441. And yes, Dylan Cruz is back. Cruz served as the Nats starting center fielder in this game. Jacob Young appears to be okay, ended up coming into the game later in the game, but it's not like Young was placed on the 10-day injured list. But Dylan Cruz in this game, Nats starting center fielder, number 6 batter, 1 for 4, had an infield single. Cruz in the bottom of the 4th, a 2-out infield single to the left side of the infield on a 1-2 pitch. And we did get a bunch more roster moves announced by the Nats on Tuesday afternoon, although none having to do with pitching. All of these were position player moves. So the Nats late night on Monday night announced having optioned third baseman Brady House to AAA Rochester. And then the 3 moves that were announced on Tuesday afternoon, the Nats announced having recalled outfielder Dylan Cruz from Rochester, announced having recalled first baseman Andres Chaparro from Rochester, announced having optioned outfielder Joey Wiemer to Rochester. Paul Toboni spoke to you guys on Tuesday afternoon. We, on the last installment of the podcast, talked about how, okay, is there going to be a lengthy leash with Dylan Cruz at the major league level in this go-round at the major league level? What would seem to be a very significant go-round. You know, like, to me, it's go time here for Dylan Cruz. Like, it is time for him to be the player who he was drafted to be. Toboni spoke, Cruz spoke. What's your sense now? Did you get that sense that there is a lengthy leash for Cruz at the major league level?
Yeah, what I really got the sense is that the team is going out of its way to tell Dylan Cruz, hey, no pressure, just go play.
For him and others, like, I think there's oftentimes this feeling when you're recalled or called up, like, hey, you got to be the savior. Like, he doesn't. Like, he can just be Dylan Cruz, and it's a really good player. Dylan's obviously a really good player, but just be yourself.
And I think Cruz himself is really trying to take that approach.
The main thing was approach, really. You know, getting the swing off in the heart of the zone. You know, standing a little bit taller, not trying to get into the legs as much.
And you saw in spring training, we talked about it at the time, how it felt like he was pressing. He was trying to make it all happen. And you could see the wear and tear that was causing on him just in his body language when he had an awful spring. And so he admitted it took a little while to get over that when he went to AAA. And then he just really focused on the process more than the results and trying to maintain a very steady and consistent approach every single day and believing that that would ultimately lead to better results. And over the last 2 to 3 weeks, it did. He started hitting the ball really well, playing really well. And I think he's trying to just carry that now back into the big leagues and not think to himself, well, I got to go make a point right off the bat.
You don't need to do much or do any little. Just going to go out there and be me and just add to this great lineup we got.
You know, it was a very nondescript game from him, 1 for 4 with an infield single. And I think that's fine. I think they would love for him to do well, but they don't want him to come in and think he has to make an immediate impact. And if anything, what he saw in this game is, as we've all seen through the first almost 2 months of the season, is that this lineup can score a bunch of runs, and he doesn't necessarily have to be the savior, a big part of it. They did it without any production really from him. So I think they're just trying to tell him, hey, just relax. Go out there, play baseball the way you've always known you've been able to. Continue what you were doing over the last few weeks in Rochester. And when it's all said and done, the results will look good and you're going to be a good baseball player for this team. But I really feel like they're trying to take any idea of pressure off him, which says to me that there is a very long leash and that this is not a 2-week tryout. And if he's batting 150, come June 5th, that he's in any danger of being sent back down.
No, I think the question would be, what if 2 months from now things are still not good, or 3 months from now things are still not good? That would be the question. And hopefully he's surging. And, I still believe that he will be a good player. But obviously you have to have doubts. I don't know how you couldn't have doubts off what has happened so far. So, there is pressure on him to perform, but hopefully he doesn't feel that pressure. And hopefully he performs like the guy who he was drafted to be. Dalen Lyle, James Wood, Dylan Cruz, and Jacob Young, who does appear to be relatively fine off getting hit by the pitch. What is the outfield mix for now in terms of playing time?
This is going to look like we saw last year with the 4-man rotation, and there's a good chance that one of them will DH on any given day. Now, maybe somebody will get a day off here and there as well. Obviously, if Jacob Young is playing, he's going to be the center fielder. That's what he does best. If he's not, then Cruz is your center fielder, as was the case in this game. I think where it gets interesting, and we did sort of see it there in the 9th inning when Butera played for the better defensive lineman and brought Young into the game as a center fielder. Cruz moved to right, and then Wood actually went to the bench. I'd be curious if they ever have an outfield of Young, Wood, and Cruz, who gets which corner spot. Cruz is considered the better corner outfielder, and last year that would have meant Cruz in right and Wood in left. But clearly they've been using James Wood as a right fielder. He's done pretty well. He's looked better over there. I would think they don't want to be moving him around a lot. So I could see Cruz actually in left field on those days. Let's say Lyle's the DH on those days, and that there's more willingness to move Dylan Cruz around the field to different positions than there is with James Wood. That's my hunch. We'll see when it actually happens. But for the most part, you're going to see all 4 get playing time, rotating in and out. Somebody will probably DH. And, there may be a day that, say, Lyle gets to sit against a tough lefty, something like that.
This episode is brought to you by Shirtgood. Owned and operated by a diehard Nats fan and Maryland native, Shirtgood makes funny and local shirts, hats, and more. For Nats fans, they have a great embroidered hat with the Half Street Southeast street sign, a We'll Always Have 2019 t-shirt with that iconic Howie Kendrick World Series foul pole, and a lot more. There's also a hat and a shirt making fun of that "this copyrighted telecast" baseball disclaimer you always hear. Plus, a lot more for baseball fans, DC area locals, and folks with a good sense of humor. Check them out at shirtgoodhq.com or shirtgoodhq on Instagram. That's SHIRTGOOD, and use code NATSCHAT for 10% off your order.
Big thanks to our sponsor, BetterHelp, for partnering with us for this important conversation about mental health.
This is Steve Smith here, former NFL wide receiver and host of the 89 show on YouTube. So having a counselor and working with BetterHelp, that gives you an opportunity to really start to unpack. But people don't understand, when you unpack things, you also open up a box that you're not always sure what's inside. So I think that's why seeing a professional is extremely important. If you need someone to open up to, visit BetterHelp. That's betterhelp.com/89 to get started.
Baseball fans know every pitch can change a game. Playoff hockey is just as intense. Every shift, every second matters. NHL on TNT has the best coverage, with stars like Paul Bissonnette bringing laughs and Wayne Gretzky breaking down the action. The studio crew makes every game feel bigger, just like a big Nationals win. Playoff hockey is unpredictable, physical, and full of overtime drama. If you love sports, you'll love the energy. Watch the Stanley Cup playoffs on TNT, TBS, truTV, and HBO Max.
When I think about Brady, it's a little bit of a blessing and a curse in that he's so talented, right? It's like the curse is that a lot of the things that maybe most players are forced to really learn and master throughout their time, Brady's been so talented that like the talent has just exceeded like our need for him to master those things, right? And so kind of taking a step back and really honing in an approach specifically against right-handed pitching, I think will be really important to him.
In terms of the other transactions here over the last day or so, Chaparro being brought back, we've seen that before. We'll see how much he actually plays. Wiemer being optioned, not a stunner. He off the torrid start really did not do much. I think there still is a lot of conversation about Brady House and why he got demoted and where we are with him. Toboni, I thought, had some interesting comments about House. For those who don't know, Brady House has some extreme platoon splits here this season. An OPS versus left-handed pitching of 989, which of course is outstanding, but an OPS versus right-handed pitching of just 550, which is quite bad. And about 75% of major league pitching is right-handed. So, it's great that you're good against left-handed pitching, but if you're bad against right-handed pitching, that's a problem. And then there is the defensive regression, which we have talked about a good bit. Ultimately, what do you think the organization is thinking right now with Brady House?
So I think the way that they're viewing this is, and I thought Toboni said this very well in a very long and detailed answer about it. Because of the way that he's killing left-handed pitching, there is, of course, an argument to keep him up here as a guy who can help you win right now. The problem is he'd end up in a platoon. Because of the struggles against right-handers, they felt like he was going to have to play less and only play part-time, focusing on facing left-handers.
He could really help this team, but we don't think it's in Brady's long-term interest, at least right now, to have him be playing just on the short side of a platoon just against lefties.
And they don't think that does him any good. It doesn't do the organization any good. And they don't just want to throw him out there against major league righties and hope that he figures it out. He needs to do some work against them, and better to do that in the lower pressure environment of AAA than to try to, I think, as Toboni described it, fighting for his life in the big leagues. So I think there's that, and then the defensive side of it as well, acknowledging that he needs to be actually less defensive when he's playing defense, which is to say, don't be afraid to make a mistake out there. Be aggressive.
I think when Brady's at his best, it's like this cocky, I'm going to go make all these plays, look great doing it type mentality.
It felt like there were times that he was trying not to make an error, and then, of course, would make an error or struggle in some way. They want him to trust his athletic ability and his instincts and go make plays and just learn maybe some particular game situations that he just hasn't dealt with at the big league level that much. Let's remember, he was rushed to the big leagues. He's still really young. In a perfect world, he probably was going to get another, at least most of last season in the minors. And I think if there's a larger storyline here, it's this. Between what they've now done with Brady House and what they did with Dylan Cruz at the end of spring training, this is the Nationals organization saying, these are really talented young players who were probably brought to the big leagues too soon. We need to show some patience with them. And even if that means sending them down and giving them that minor league experience that they never got before, that it will pay off in the long run. I think they're kind of inherently saying, if it was up to us, they wouldn't have been here in the first place, probably. And we're going to try to correct that now.
So it's one thing with Brady House. He was drafted out of high school, number 11 overall pick in the 2021 MLB first-year player draft out of a high school in Georgia. But as we have talked about with Dylan Cruz, he was a number 2 overall pick. He was taken out of LSU. He was the Golden Spikes Award winner. Everyone talked about how he was this major league ready player. Was he really rushed to the majors? I remember the conversations we were having when he was in the minors. We talked about, hey, when are they going to call up Dylan Cruz? And there was a clamoring for the team to call up Dylan Cruz. And when he got called up, I don't remember anyone saying that he had been rushed to the majors. And I do feel like a guy with his background, his profile, his resume, I don't think it's unreasonable for him to have debuted at the major league level when he did. I don't know. I have a hard time accepting that Dylan Cruz was rushed to the majors.
Well, here's how I would say to that. Yes, I think everybody would have looked at him in that situation coming out of LSU and said, he's a prime candidate to be fast-tracked to the big leagues. And certainly others we have seen in the last 20 years have done it. Ryan Zimmerman was in the big leagues months after he was drafted, never looked back and always looked ready for it. And I think in Cruz's case, I don't think he was overwhelmed by the big leagues, certainly not from a defensive standpoint or, ready for the speed of the game, anything like that. I think it was really just more an offensive issue with him that he was not adjusting to big league pitching in terms of laying off of breaking balls and being able to, make good solid contact on that. And so he had to try to figure some things out on the fly. And they finally got to a point this spring that said, you need some time to go work on this. I don't think they believe he's immature from a baseball standpoint, like maybe Brady House would be. I think that was more, he just needs to work on some things offensively to become a good big league hitter. And when I say that he was rushed, I don't think it's because of a maturity issue. I think it's because we've talked about this. He didn't really dominate the minor leagues. They called him up because it sort of felt like, well, this is what you're supposed to do. He's Dylan Cruz. He was the Golden Spikes winner. He came out of LSU. Paul Skeens is already in the big leagues. James Wood we just called up, and he's off to a great start. Let's bring Cruz up as well. And there is a scenario out there where it would have worked and everything would have been fine. And that first year, he was okay. He wasn't bad that first year. But it maybe was a little bit premature from an offensive standpoint. And I don't know how Paul Toboni would have handled it back then. I'm just saying everything we've seen from them so far since they took over has been much more on the cautious side and taking their time with young players that they believe are going to be really good. And they would rather put a team that's less exciting and maybe even less successful on the field at the big league level than put a young guy up here that they don't think is truly 100% ready for it.
Yeah, I mean, the actions certainly speak to that. I guess just with Cruz, I would say if he is the guy who you hope that he is, he should be able to overcome being brought up to the majors a little sooner than maybe he should have been. You know, that would kind of be my thing with that, too. If he was rushed, and again, I think that's very debatable, but if he was, you still would like to think, okay, he's talented enough, gifted enough, mature enough to where he could kind of figure it out at the major league level, and it wasn't happening. And clearly the organization felt that way, and so he got optioned to AAA before opening day.
Yeah, and it would be great to have Mike Rizzo speak honestly about this, of how he felt about it at the time and then how he felt after the fact of his readiness. You know, we may never know exactly how that all went down, but again, not that he was bad. But James Wood forced the issue where you said, you have to call this guy up. And then, of course, he took off from there. Cruz was just fine. He wasn't like, hey, I am ready for the big leagues. It was almost like this preordained, okay, it's his turn next. We're calling him up. And it just didn't go quite as well as they would have hoped. He's still young. There's still a lot of time for him. I really do get the sense from everybody that they do believe he is going to still be a very good player. But it's on him now to go and do that. And maybe it's more mental than anything else. And maybe he was wearing that pressure of having to be one of the saviors of the team that's going to lead them back into contention, and the pressure of being the number 2 overall pick and seeing what his old LSU teammate Skeens did and how am I going to live up to that? We can't know what's inside his head, but I wonder if there was some of that all along. And so I'll be curious to see how he handles this now. Like I said, he is very much approaching this as, I just need to be the best version of myself as possible and not try to be something that I'm not.
Well, this is going to be maybe the single biggest storyline for the Nats the rest of this season. How does Dylan Cruz do? Does he become the player who he was drafted to be?
Baseball fans know every pitch can change a game. Playoff hockey is just as intense. Every shift, every second matters. NHL on TNT has the best coverage, with stars like Paul Bissonnette bringing laughs and Wayne Gretzky breaking down the action. The studio crew makes every game feel bigger, just like a big Nationals win. Playoff hockey is unpredictable, physical, and full of overtime drama. If you love sports, you'll love the energy. Watch the Stanley Cup playoffs on TNT, TBS, truTV, and HBO Max.
Here's Bo Bichette. And Bichette drives one to the gap in right center field. Cruz on the go, way back there to the wall. This one over his head and gone. It just clears over the out-of-town scoreboard, and 2 batters in. The Mets lead it 2-0.
The Nats starting pitcher in this 9-6 win over the Mets at Nationals Park on Tuesday evening was Foster Griffin. He, off having been so good over his first 8 starts, was bad for a second consecutive start. Did settle down to give the Nats some length, but the final line, 5 runs in 5 innings. He gave up 8 hits, which were 2 home runs, a double, and 5 singles. He issued a hit by pitch. He did have 5 strikeouts versus no walks. He did throw a lot of strikes, 97 pitches, 67 strikes, just 30 balls, and he tossed 3 scoreless innings after allowing 5 runs over the first 2 innings. But those first 2 innings were rough, especially the top of the first. Griffin, in the top of the first, allowed 3 runs on a homer, a double, 2 singles, and a sac fly. The homer was the first pitch opposite field 2-run homer by Bo Bichette to right center for a 2-0 Mets lead. Griffin in that Mets 3-run first, 26 pitches, although 21 of the pitches were strikes. Griffin in the top of the second 2 runs, gave up a 2-out full count, 2-run homer by Bo Bichette to left field for a 5-0 Mets lead. But it was good to see Griffin then toss scoreless 3rd, 4th, and 5th innings. So there was that. And like I said, he threw a lot of strikes and he had the 5 strikeouts versus no walks. But we've seen him get rocked over his last 2 outings in a way that we did not see over the first 8. I mean, he has allowed 25 earned runs. 14 of them have come over his last 2 outings. What'd you think of what we saw from Foster Griffin?
So I actually think this was a really important start for him. And in the end, it was a positive. Now, it didn't start that way, for sure. And it was ugly those first couple innings. And Bichette just absolutely crushed those 2 homers off him. But I thought Foster Griffin showed a lot in this one, in that how many other guys would we have seen could not finish that out or would have been knocked out early? And the fact that he was able to flip the switch and grind out 3 scoreless innings after those first 2, keep the pitch count under 100 and just get through 5 innings and give his teammates time now and the opportunity to come back and take the lead. I think that was actually an impressive job by him on a night when he maybe wasn't at his best, that he found a way. He did not walk anybody. He overcame, obviously. I mean, he's at 70 pitches through 3 innings, and he got through 5 on 97. No, that's not the best version of him at all, but that to me is the kind of start, and we've talked about this for other guys, when you don't have your best, can you just find a way? And I know the final line isn't going to blow you away, but I think he did really do a good job of finding a way to give them 5 innings when they absolutely needed it, given the state of the bullpen, and kept it to the 5 runs and gave his teammates a chance to come back.
What do you think, though, is different to where he's gotten hit well these last 2 outings versus having been superb over those first 8? Like, do you think teams are picking up on things that he is doing? Do you think just the location's a little bit off? Because, like, it does stand out. He had, like, very few blemishes over those first 8 starts. These last 2 have been a much different story.
Yeah, there could be some better scouting going on. He may be, and I'm knowing him a little bit, I feel like he's always thinking about his pitch sequencing and trying not to be too predictable. And maybe there's a little bit of that teams are starting to figure out, okay, he likes to throw this in this situation, that in that situation. The second Bichette homer came on a cutter. Griffin actually thought it wasn't that bad of a pitch, but I think it was on the inside corner, if I remember right. But that might be a case where you only hit that out if you have some kind of sense or reason to believe that it's coming. And that's how he was able to turn his hands on it and drive it that way. So maybe he is a little too predictable in that sense. It felt like, and he didn't go into a lot of details, but it felt like once he got through that second inning, he did try to make some adjustments and change some things up in terms of what he was throwing when, in terms of his actual delivery to the plate. It seemed like he was going with like this hesitation move to slow down his delivery and throw off the timing somewhat. I think he was trying to throw the kitchen sink at them and trying to find anything that would work, and he did. So there is work to be done. Yes, you cannot allow this to turn into any kind of long slide. So I know that he's going to be working on making sure that that doesn't happen, because he has not been the same the last couple of times out. But just the simple fact that he was able to flip that switch in game said to me that that was a big step for him, not just letting that start fall apart altogether.
Griffin now 10 games, all starts, ERA 4.02, whip 1.18. And the Nats relief pitching in this game was good. 2 Nats relievers combined to allow 1 run in 4 innings. Brad Lord, 1 run, 3 innings, 3 strikeouts. Did give up a solo homer by Juan Soto. This coming in the top of the 7th, a 2-out solo shot by Soto to center to cut the Nats lead to 9-6. So the homer going a projected 434 feet per Statcast. But how do you not like the job that Lord is doing as a long man for the Nats? 15 games, 32 innings, ERA 3.09, whip 1.09, and Richard Lovelady, a perfect top of the 9th for the save. I love this about Richard Lovelady. His whip is nearly higher than his ERA. His ERA is 2.03, which is great. His whip is 1.65, which is really bad. And that, to me, in so many ways, is the 2026 Nats, right? This excellent offense, bad pitching, Lovelady, excellent ERA, bad whip. That is something. I don't know that I've ever seen that. A relief pitcher or any pitcher with a whip approaching being higher than the ERA.
It's a lot of walks. That's what's leading to that whip. And as we've discussed, his splits are completely reversed, and he's not getting lefties out at all. But he's finding a way to be effective. And against the team that signed and released him like 4 times in the last year, I think. That had to feel pretty good for him. I want to say this. Outside of Foster Griffin, I think the most valuable pitchers on the national staff this year are the long relievers. Brad Lord, Mitchell Parker, Andrew Alvarez has done it a couple times, and I think we're going to see him again on Wednesday, paired up with Zach Littell. I think those guys have become so valuable in bridging the gap between the starter and whoever's going to pitch at the end of the game, and very often going 3 innings and giving up a minimal amount of runs. It's an unsung kind of job. It's a thankless thing you don't think that much about. They haven't had anything like that here in a long time. And I love the way that Blake Butera is using them, and certainly love the way that they are performing. Brad Lord, Andrew Alvarez, Mitchell Parker, I think to me are the most valuable pitchers on the staff, not named Foster Griffin.
Brad Lord is on pace to get about 100 innings of work. I don't have the exact math in front of me here, but we're approaching about a third of the way through the 162. Lord is at 32 innings, so that would be something, right? A reliever in modern day MLB getting to 100 innings, and he could end up being actually well above 100 innings. So Andrew Alvarez, we never talked about this on the last installment of the podcast because of everything else that was going on. He is still on the Major League active roster. Do you think he is here to stay on the Major League active roster?
Well, I think we're going to see him pitch on Wednesday along with Littell. And as of now, Littell is the starter. Maybe they'll use the opener, maybe not. But I'm pretty sure we'll see Alvarez following him. If that goes well for him, I think there's going to be a case to try to continue with this. Now, can you afford to carry 3 long relievers in Lord, Alvarez, and Parker? That may be too much to ask. And Parker's done well, so I don't think you want to send him down. So maybe that boils down to if Littell really struggles, or if Miles Michaelis really struggles next time out, maybe that opens the path for Andrew Alvarez. But I do think we're going to be talking about in the next few days, Clayton Beeter coming off the IL. Cole Henry may be back sometime soon as well, but I think certainly Beeter here in the next few days. So perhaps Alvarez pitches in relief on Wednesday, and then come Thursday, he and Beeter swap spots. So maybe that's it. But if Littell were to really struggle again, if Michaelis were to really struggle again, you start having to have that conversation, or Jake Irvin really struggles again, about Alvarez and could he be a better fit starter. I think they're taking it day by day right now, but as long as he keeps pitching well, there's going to be a case to include him on this team in some role.
Were you surprised that none of the moves on Tuesday afternoon were pitching moves? We kind of thought at least some would be. It was all position player moves, though.
Yeah, a little bit. But then when you look at who was available at AAA, they don't really have any good options there. Julian Fernandez is on the 40-man roster. I believe he's hurt now on the minor league IL. Andre Granillo, I don't think has been down long enough to be brought back. Same for Zach Kent, who was up here for a few days. Otherwise, you're calling up a starter like a Riley Cornelio. So unless you wanted to go off the 40-man roster to do something, I'm not sure there was a move to be made there. And as I said, I think they know that Beeter's very close. So it was just kind of like, let's hang on for a few more days until he's ready, and that may allow us to do some things. But it goes back to what I said earlier about Griffin being able to give you 5 innings. That was critical. They could not afford a 3-inning start tonight. And what Brad Lord and the other long men have done has helped allow them to weather this storm over the last week or so.
Game 3 for the Nats against the Mets at Nationals Park Wednesday evening at 6:45. As we discussed, the Nats have Zach Littell as their probable starting pitcher for the game. This installment of Nats Chat brought to us by Shirt Good, owned and operated by a diehard Nats fan. Shirt Good makes funny and local shirts, such as the iconic Howie Kendrick foul pole shirt. Check out Shirt Good at shirtgoodhq.com or ShirtGoodHQ on Instagram. Use the promo code NatsChat for 10% off your order. We always enjoy hearing from you. You can hit us up on X at Nats_chat. You can find us on Blue Sky at Nats Chat Podcast. You can email us natschatpodcast@gmail.com. We have a website at which you can purchase a Nats Chat Podcast t-shirt. That website, natschatpodcast.com. All Nationals radio highlights on Nats Chat are courtesy of 106.7 The Fan. For Mark Zuckerman, I'm Al Galdi. We thank you for listening, and we'll talk to you next time on the Nats Chat Podcast.
Representing the New York Mets with the 75th pick of the 2022 MLB Draft. The New York Mets select Nick Morabito, an outfielder from Gonzaga College High School, Washington, District of Columbia, the Atlanta Braves have the next pick.